All right, there we go. Well, I'm so excited. I was reading through your questionnaire and kind of all the things that you were envisioning for your coaching session and what you're dreaming of and kind of where you're at in business. So I think I saw kind of a handful of different like themes that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that we kind of hit all of the things that you're hoping to get out of today. Kind of the themes that I saw were kind of one making that step to like the road to full time and
Yeah.
like what that looks like and practical steps on getting there. And then booking more, like booking more clients and kind of building up kind of like your referral portal and kind of all of that stuff. And then kind of within that, like a subtopic of like your ideal client and who that is and like finding them and that sort of thing. And then kind of workflows and building a team and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Does that kind of, and I want to make sure that we like carve out enough time to kind of hit all of those at least a little bit. Is there one that kind of sticks out or something else that like we want to make sure that we have time for?
No, this all sounds perfect. I'm glad you were able to capture that because when I was looking at filling in the questionnaire, I was like, I really don't know how to do this, but let me just work on it and hope that it works.
Yeah.
Um, as much as I would love to focus on the nine, like leaving the 9 to 5, I think, given the current interviewing process of me staying within a job, I don't see that being now like the biggest priority.
Okay.
Um, it's still a goal.
Sure.
It's still a goal,
I think
but
once you get some of these other elements like into place as well, like that will come a little bit more natural. Because when you're
exactly.
booking more, then like financially, you're going to be at a closer point of where, you'll be able to like leave that 9 to 5. So I think
Yeah.
it's like maybe like an underlying theme
Yes.
of like
Yes. Yeah.
potentially like future goal. And I think some of these other goals will kind of go with that. So anything else that you were kind of hoping to talk about today? And it might just like things might come to you like as we kind of dive into all the stuff. So feel free to like jump in there. I would love to start out by kind of getting like a pulse of like kind of like where your like what your backstory has been and like kind of how like you've got started and kind of where your business is at now and kind of what things look like kind of just to get like a baseline and then we'll dive into kind of some of these topics. Does that work?
Oh my gosh, it works because I feel like you're gonna love the story.
Okay. Hey, I'm excited.
Just because I've been interviewing, kind of explaining my story, I feel like you're actually gonna understand
Let's
what
do
I'm
it.
saying.
Yep.
So, I went to JMU. I was once upon a time I can't believe what I'm gonna say is I was doing accounting. Um, and at JMU, you have to do like the 10 prereqs to get into Cobb.
I was a cop major at JMU, so I know all of it.
Got it. Well, I did not do Cobb, spoiler alert, because I failed accounting.
Oh no.
I could not do accounting. And mind you, like I came from like getting straight A's in high school with AP classes, like a B, like I was allergic to B's, like B pluses, never saw them in my life. So it was a very weird concept for me to be failing with an F accounting. I took it again,
Yeah.
failed again. And I was like, oh my gosh. And at that point, I was like, no, I'm not doing accounting, obviously. I'm gonna switch to marketing. I hadn't even taken a marketing class yet because the 10 prereqs, right? And I was like, okay, like I can't believe like I'm almost gonna be quitting my marketing dream by because I'm failing accounting. Like this, what kind of world is this? So what ended up happening is when I was about to take it for the third time, I was talking to my best friend and she goes, my roommate is doing hospitality management. And I was like, what the heck is hospitality management? I've never heard of this. Googled it, fell in love with it. Instead of taking accounting for the third time, I actually switched my major. So when I switched my major, um, everything kind of fit. I walked into Godwin and it was like, oh my God, these are my people. Like the girl who sat next to me had her color pens all lined up and her planner. And I was like, oh, I have color pens and a planner.
Yeah,
Like,
sugar is so dreary and
right?
romance
Okay.
bros and yeah.
Power to you, Jordan, the fact that you did that.
There was three girls in my grade. I was like, oh, okay. Makes
Yep,
sense.
yep. And so it all just kind of instantly clicked. It was kind of really magical in how that happened. And so fast forward the first semester, the first year, something like that, my college roommate was like, so what are you gonna do with this degree? I was like, I have no idea. All jokes aside, I really truly thought that wedding planning was just a movie thing from like J-Lo that she did. Like I thought it was like something from fiction. Like I never thought wedding planners were real.
Mhm.
I think culturally speaking, like me being like Hispanic, like it was just very much you go to school for engineering, teachers, business, and like again, very culturally speaking, I wasn't aware of any other majors. So when I was like, no, like I kind of like the planning of events, like I've naturally always have fallen into that role within my family of planning things.
Mhm.
Again, without knowing that it could have been a career. So I kind of freaked out and I was like, what am I doing? I went on the knot and emailed all the wedding planners on there. And I was like, hey, I'm a junior, just switched my major to hospitality at JMU. What is your advice? Or like, I just need something.
Mhm.
Um, Lauren Prattis
Mhm.
emailed me back and was like, I recommend you assist. I'm actually looking for an assistant in August. Are you free? Absolutely. Yes, I am.
Mhm.
Great, cool. Agreed to her. Obviously, she had a beautiful website. But I never really understood her world. I'm getting to that part.
Mhm.
And the first wedding that she had me at was at Goodstone Inn
Uh-huh.
with Salamander. And she put me at the night at Salamander. And I was like, what did I get myself into? Like, this is crazy. And I was in charge of, I think, the rentals, the chair rentals for the ceremony at Goodstone, and then I think some of the florals. And when I saw the floral contract, and I was like, this is a car.
Mhm.
My parents own a car like this. Like, this is ridiculous. And I'm in charge of this?
Mhm.
Like, oh my God. And then just seeing Salamander the way that Salamander now it's less intimidating, but like back in the day, I was just like, oh my God, like where am I?
Yeah.
Um, but all jokes aside, the second I got that clipboard in my hand, I was like, oh my God, like I'm meant to be here. Like this is amazing. So fast forward, I started assisting her, did really well in school, found my home in at JMU, continued to assist her, and just kind of as I continued to assist her, realized that like I just don't belong in that world.
Okay. Yep.
I
Very
don't.
luxury. Yeah. Mhm.
I don't. And I'm sure you may get it or not get it. I'm just not that type of girl.
Yeah.
I like a
There's a
good,
different kind of like luxury client that it comes with
yeah,
things. Certain things. Yes.
yes, yes, yes. And I know you know what I mean.
Yep.
Um, so I was like, this is not nice. So then I went on for some reason, I think like Indeed. And I'm not sure if you know her, but her name is Stephanie with SRS Events.
Okay.
And had just started her company. So she was looking for assistance. And I was like, well, this is kind of an interesting opportunity. Like you just started your wedding company. Like this is
Mhm.
gonna be a break, a nice break from like Lauren and her luxury stuff. Like, why not? And Jordan, when I mean she started it, oh girl, like there was a like one time I texted my now husband, I was like, the centerpieces are crocheted. Her
Oh,
bouquet is crocheted.
oh,
I don't know what kind of wedding I'm in. And it's a
yeah,
very
we've
weird
all had some of
dynamic.
those.
It's a very weird dynamic. And he was like, you say the word and I go pick you up. Like it was very sketch. And again, I really appreciated her humble beginnings because like it was just very different. Like I hadn't
Yeah.
seen this part of it. And it was nice to like she knew I had worked for Lauren, so it was nice to kind of also help her with certain things I have worked for, like have learned from Lauren. So it was really nice to kind of be heard and be seen. But kind of fast forward to that, I then started working for an association. I've been current at my current job for 7 years because going into the wedding industry was just obviously hard. Like
Yeah.
you had to wait for someone to die in their team, and then magically a position could be maybe open.
Mhm.
So I was like, you know what? I obviously need money. This wedding thing isn't going to be a thing. Like, it's just not going to be a thing. So then I started working for my job and I would find myself just like going on Instagram and like fangirling and like the FOMO was always real. And I would always joke and tell my husband, I was like, for Laura of Grit and Grace, I would pay her to work for her.
Mhm.
Like, she's so funky, she's so sweet, she's so cool. Her clients just seem very different. Like, I
Yeah.
would love to work for her. And I think it was him or someone was like, well, why don't you just email her? I was like, you know what, you're right. Like, I did it once. Like, why can't I just do it again? What's the words that she said? Doesn't respond to me? Okay.
Yeah, and then you're in the same position that you were before. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I did. and I actually ended up working for Laura. So I was one of her day of assistants, and I loved it. Like, it was crazy how it was just different. It was very different, very, very different in the most beautiful ways. Like, she was so creative, so sweet, so nice, so quirky. Everything she is on social media, she really is in real life. Like, I love her. Can't say anything bad about her. Adore her. Um, so worked with her, and then at the same time started working for Brittany's sister company, which was Etc. coordinator. So just doing like more on-site management for that. So did that, continued to work with Stephanie. So I had my hand in a couple other things, and COVID happened. And again, I found myself on Instagram being like, I hate my job. Like, it's just very cookie cutter, like boring events. I want to be doing this. Like, I want to be doing that. Like, this is crazy. I had gotten engaged too, and I was in the process of planning my wedding, and I was having a very hard time finding like inspirations from like Latina brides. Like, there just wasn't many of them.
Mhm,
Tried to find a wedding planner, even though I had known I wanted to do it myself, still couldn't find anything. I was like, what if I become one? I
mhm.
was like, this is kind of like, I hate to be like, this is fun because it's not fun at all. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be a
Yeah,
wedding planner. It seems so much fun. I'm so tired of being behind my desk. And I'm like, what do you think being a wedding planner is? I am
yeah,
behind my desk and on my feet. Like, it's a mix of both.
yeah.
But I was like, I think I'm going to do this. And I'll never forget. I was on a FaceTime with my two best friends from college. And I was like, I think I'm gonna start my company. And like, we all started crying. And they're like, oh my God, like this is perfect. I was like, yes, like this is so perfect. And I remember some of the haters were like, oh, I can't believe you're starting your company in COVID. I'm like, why not? Like, the reschedules, I'm gonna be available. They're not gonna be available. It's gonna be a perfect time.
Mhm.
So fast forward, I launched my company. And I have been super lucky to have almost like all amazing couples. Like, I don't work with moms, which has been nice. I only work with the bride and groom, mostly the brides. Um, don't really haven't tackled into luxury at all. Have done those like, oh, my budget's 15,000. I'm like, oh, we'll see how that ends.
Yeah.
And it ends up being obviously more, but I've been very blessed with all of that. And kind of this is where I am. I've had two kids within me being open, like with my business
Wow.
being open. So taking maternity leave was very interesting. But I also think there was such a beauty in how it happened where and this happened for both pregnancies, Jordan. Right before I found out I was pregnant, I was upset that I wasn't booked from like this date to this date. And I was like, why am I not booked? Like, this is really sad. I'm like, ugh. But it always happens, right? Like, it can be engagement season. Like, I'll book. And then I find out I was pregnant.
Mhm.
I was actually able to intentionally, those months that I was upset about, intentionally not book anybody. So that actually again happened both times.
Yep.
So which was really beautiful.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, that's again a little bit about me. That's kind
Yeah.
of how I ended up where I am. I'm very happy and like so happy like that it makes me want it so much more than my corporate job. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the business now. How many couples did you guys serve last year? Kind of what does this upcoming year look like? Tell me a little bit about like the geographic areas. If you're working at like specific venues, what does the scope look like as of right now?
Let me pull up my email because that is going to be a better indication. So last year, given the fact that I was pregnant,
Mhm.
2024, you're about to see my toddler walk in, just ignore her.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Um, it was one, two, three, four, five, six, seven weddings last year.
Amazing. Yeah, if with maternity leave and a pregnancy, that's amazing. So 7 weddings last year. What does this upcoming year look like for you?
This wedding this year, it's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven as well.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, and we're only in February of this year, so that's awesome. So 7 weddings already booked. And then where are you based out of? You're in DC. Is that outside of DC, Nova?
I'm in Stafford, Virginia,
Okay.
which is like right between like Woodbridge and Richmond.
Oh,
Um,
Okay, gotcha. Like Fredericksburg area?
Kind of, yes. To
Okay,
make it easier for you, yes, Fredericksburg area.
okay.
So I'm very far removed enough with traffic from DC,
Mhm.
but DC is kind of where we like to be. Leesburg, I love working in the Leesburg area. I got married at Fleetwood Farm Winery, so I love all the winery spaces up there. But yeah,
Okay, and so you would say you're a DMV
yeah.
primarily based. Okay, amazing. So then in terms of the like as you guys are kind of thinking through like booking more weddings because obviously to get closer to the goal full time you take on a higher volume of events. What does your current marketing look like in terms of like how are couples finding you, like what are you doing in terms of marketing efforts? What does that look like for your business right now?
So when I had first started the business, I felt like I needed to be on the knot, right? I was like, if I'm gonna launch, like I need to do it right. Girl, I know you know that that's
Waste
crazy.
of money.
Ridiculous. And I remember like like my husband and I like pulled out our savings account to like pay for the ad space. Luckily I was able to pay it off quickly, but now looking back, if I were to ever give some advice to someone starting new, like you don't need that.
Don't
Like
take them on.
please,
Yeah.
please
Mhm.
actually don't invest. Like invest in social media.
Mhm.
Um, and that kind of brings me back to my point of like Instagram tends to be the most referrals that I get from. I hired once upon a time ago a social media creator because again, I'm in this really weird bubble of like, not a bubble, but like a circle of like, I know I need to market more to book more sales, but like I don't have the time to market
Mhm.
because I'm in my corporate job.
Mhm.
But if I had time, like I would be marketing more, I would doing Instagram more, but it
Mhm.
also doesn't require that much work, but it does. Like I'm in this
Mhm.
weird space of like I know I need to be more on Instagram and have some more
Mhm.
presence on it.
What does that do they still like do your Instagram? Okay, so you do it now.
I've been doing it now, yeah.
Perfect. And do you feel like that's like you're getting your ideal clients from Instagram? Like do you feel like do you like the couples that are coming to you that are finding you off of Instagram? Like are they good fit?
There, yeah, there's a good mix of like so I think what the problem also is about me marketing myself maybe as like a Latino wedding planner is again, I'm gonna be very honest with you and transparent, is that like it comes with those clients that are like, oh, my aunt's doing the flowers. Oh, my uncle knows of a person that's doing catering. Oh, this and that. And I'm like, I get it. Like I really do. But like it's just so much more work for me, Jordan.
It's a
Like
little
it's
bit more it is, yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah, I think that once you there's a certain threshold, or at least, like, when I feel like when I, like, hear your story, like, you're exactly where I was, like, 3 or 4 years ago.
oh,
So it's like, I feel like I can very much, like, relate, but, there is, like, a certain threshold, or at least there was, like, when I was experiencing when my prices were X, then, like, I was doing, like, 10 times the work as, like, when my prices tripled, and now people like respect like my expertise, and there's just higher caliber weddings that they are outsourcing florals, they are outsourcing catering, they are not trying to DIY it themselves. And so I do think that there's like a little bit of a game in that of kind of, and I want to dive into like what packages you're offering and like what that includes and price point and stuff like that, just to get a little bit of better idea, but I know exactly what you're talking about. And I'm obviously not Latino, and I've done a handful, but not like a ton. But so I don't know like if that's a cultural thing of like them wanting to DIY stuff. I figure it probably is. Um, but I wonder, is it something that like you obviously like that's what sets you apart, is that you do have that connection to your culture. I wonder if it's something that like if a Latino couple is not necessarily your ideal client in terms of like how they usually operate from a cultural perspective, kind of like stepping away from that in terms of like that being at the forefront of your marketing and more so like a thing on, like your about page of like your Latino heritage and what that means to you and kind of how that's influenced who you are today, but not saying I am a wedding planner for Latinos, because then you are excluding of, people that are not Latino. Maybe they're, African American or Indian or white or whatever other cultures or ethnicities or things like that that they are, and you're saying you're a Latino. Well, that's not me, so I'm not a good fit for K.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something that you consider potentially you know acknowledging that, but maybe not like at the very front of like the
Um,
upfront of your marketing, potentially.
no, and that like makes a lot of sense because again, when I get the inquiries of like the 10, the $15,000, I feel really bad. Like I really do, but I also like value my time.
Yep.
I value expertise. Like I've been in the industry for like what, almost like 8, 9, like almost 10 years, I think. Like
Mhm.
I have Jordan, I have scraped bird poop from the DAR like ceremony places. Like I've done that. Like
Yep.
not doing that again. Like I've paid my respects to the industry plus more. And
Exactly.
I find that like the couples that I love the most are the ones that are like, oh, this is how much it costs. Okay, cool.
Yep. Yeah, and they respect, like they value um they value outsourcing. They
Yes.
outsource other aspects of their life, and their wedding is no different. They want to hire the experts to make sure that they're, getting the caliber or service or experience that they are envisioning. So yeah, I definitely think that there's merit in there. In terms of like partners like within the industry, whether that's venues or photographers or other planner or things like that. Tell me a little bit more about kind of your relationships with other vendors. Are there vendors that like constantly like refer you to their clients? Do you have any strong relationships with other vendors in the market, that you enjoy working with them and kind of have a good kind of relationship there, and what that looks like?
Yes. It's so sad that you asked that question because my answer is so sad. No, not really. I feel like yes and no. Nothing super official, I'll be honest with you. I'm not on those preferred vendor lists from any vendors or venues or anything like that. One coordinator friend of mine, she always refers me to any couples that she doesn't have availability for because she's constantly booking a lot more than I am.
Mhm.
So when she responds and is like, "Hey, I'm not available, but check out
Yeah.
Kayla," and she adds a couple other ones, but I do get some inquiries from her.
Mhm.
That's always nice. Other than that, like my closer vendor friends that would be, let's say, like photography, for example, one that I can think of, they're in a boat where like I'm bringing business to them.
Okay. Yeah. I would
Um,
agree. Photographers usually are like that. Yeah.
So, it's gonna be really hard that, like, they refer me to them. Same with florists, like, some of my like, I love working with, like, Petal& and Bloom, and, like, Brenda from that team is amazing, she's a sweetheart, but, like, more often not, I'm bringing vendors to them, like, clients to them. And as I say this out loud, it makes sense within, like, the workflow of a wedding that, like, they're not really gonna have an opportunity to refer me. Um, and even like caterers, like again, like I'm reaching out to them for clients and things like that. So
Okay.
no, nothing official.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be something that I would want to challenge you on, and kind of let's think through, because for me personally, and I know that this is the same for a lot of people, the relationships that you're making in the industry, like I do not pay a penny for marketing, because people are referring me from from venues, from caterers, from like those sorts of things. And I think there's a lot more, you have to put way less effort into like, yes, you have to build a lot of effort on the upfront and like continuing to build those like relationships with the actual vendors themselves. But I'm not trying to keep up with the Instagram trends. I'm not trying to like do any of that like rat wheel. I did it for a really long time of like trying to get people from Instagram who like don't know me from Adam and
Yeah.
building like that like and know and trust factor. Whereas like if they hear my name from a venue, like they've already booked that venue, so clearly they like what they see at that venue. They know what like they trust whoever their contact is at that venue, that they're putting down $15,000 for their venue. They're going to trust the opinion of the people that work there. And so venue referrals are like a number one source of like constant booking streams with me, and that's one of those things that there's a kind of a couple of different like schools of thought into how you get into like getting those referrals. But there's kind of like I took more of the route of like just if I get like in at a venue, like just doing really like being really intentional and like nurturing that relationship with the venue, going above and beyond, being like very in tune with like what their rules are, being very like on top of it in terms of communication with them, just going above and beyond to show like, okay, I am really good and easy to work with.
Yeah.
And also like with whoever that contact is, going and creating, send them Starbucks like the morning of the wedding, like a $10 Starbucks gift card of just saying, hey, like here's a little extra fuel for today. I'm excited to work with you. And like, just not buying referrals, but like just being a genuinely good human and building those friendships. Cause at the end of the day, I feel like some of my best vendor relationships, like we have trauma bonded. Just like
For
staying very
sure.
on wedding days. And I think that just those relationships are so vital because I mean you're putting in all this effort on Instagram, which I definitely think there's a strategy to Instagram, but you're putting in all of this effort to get like one client, and you might get a referral from them like for a friend or family, but like if you are investing relationships into venues specifically, like they're hosting 50, 60, 70
Yeah.
weddings a year, and so they're just gonna naturally, like from a numbers perspective, like have um more of a referral bank, so to speak, of like, even if they only send you 10% of those, like that's 5 or 6 weddings a year. Like, that's one of those things that there's just so much value. And I can't stress that enough of like relationships with vendors and specifically as a planner, venues. And then I think probably catering is like my second referral source of like a caterer will send somebody my way. Usually in those scenarios, it's for like a wedding management client, not usually like a partial or a full planning or something like that. But does that make any sense? Does that like ring any bells? Like
No, it definitely makes a
yeah.
lot of sense, and I think I don't wanna be like, "Oh, I knew that," but, like, I obviously knew some of that.
Yeah.
I also think that, like and I feel like it's also very natural for me to put a "but" to it.
Yeah.
Like,
No, let's hear
traveling
it.
to a lot of these places and connecting with them, with my kids has been really difficult, like and that's a balance that I'm trying to personally find in the fact of, like, maybe I don't wanna go away too much, of, like, doing these networkings, but I also have a 9 to 5, so, like, I have to balance, like, okay, do I take PTO this one day to go connect with some venues and do a walkthrough? Or,
Or would you rather
how
use the
can
PTO day for a family, like family event, that sort of thing? What
yeah.
venues are you working at this year?
St. Francis, we've actually been there almost like every year, which has been super fun.
Okay.
St. Francis Hall in DC. I'm at Russ Manor twice. Um, this one in August is like way in Maryland, which it's like 10 point acres or something like that. Um, Anna's is Manor at I think it's like 1878, but I wouldn't, they do like all of it. So I wouldn't really consider that a partner.
You like working
Um,
at St. Francis and Russ Manor?
I do.
Okay. So maybe
Um,
it's one of those things. I mean, if you've St. Francis, you were like, we've worked there so many times, at least, every year. That seems like a really easy like starting point of like, I don't want you to go and waste your time and your PTO. Like that is so precious. Especially with little ones. Like I don't want you to go and waste like your time with, yes, like it would be great like if you had the time, but like realistically, like in your season of life right now, like maybe it's just easier for you to go and like nurture the relationships that you like are currently like in your sphere of work. So maybe that's like St. Francis and Russ Manor. Maybe you like intentionally like this year kind of focus on those two relationships, and maybe, as you're going to the walkthrough, maybe arrive like 15-20 minutes earlier than you think your client's going to get there, and just chit chat with whoever the venue owner is, get to know them from a personal level, ask about their personal life, ask how they're feeling about the upcoming, like, just continue
Yeah,
to build those relationships, and um kind of nurture, like, where you're at. I'm always, I don't know, I'm not like a hard seller of like, "Can you put me on your preferred vendors list?" I think I'm a little bit more organic in, like, my approach of, like, I want to just genuinely build relationships, and then,
uh,
like, that just comes naturally of, like, if they like you and like working with you, then they're gonna wanna tell people about you, sort of
yeah,
thing.
for sure.
So maybe, like, you focus this year on those 2 venue relationships, and kind of nurturing those, and kind of building up that clientele there.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good goal. Um, and I think like I always love being back at like the place that I got married. I don't know if like you feel the same way with yours.
That would be amazing. Like, your take what was the name of it? You said
It was Fleetwood Farm
Fleetwood.
Winery.
Okay. That one would be amazing too, because I mean they, like, you did your wedding there, and so they clearly know you, like, from a client perspective. And so have you done any weddings, like, as a coordinator there?
I have. I think I've done one or two. One for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that feels, hopefully that feels like a little bit more manageable, of like either places that, like, start with people that you know and places that you're working in currently, versus just like cold emailing a venue that you've never
Yeah.
had,
Yeah.
and kind
Yeah.
of starting from scratch. That feels a little bit more organic to me, and in the way that, like, you would approach that conversation, and that relationship.
Yeah.
Um,
Sounds really fun and exciting too.
Okay, good, good. And I'll in, like, the action plan, I'll include, like, some ideas of, like, things that I've done in the past that um like have not, and it's a long game here. Like, you're not looking to,
Yeah.
like, it's not going to happen in 2 months. Like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, like, relationship building is a long game. But some strategies or things that, like, you could get you started in terms of kind of building that relationship with your venues. Um Cool. Okay, so that was a little bit of marketing, kind of what you guys are doing now. Let's kind of shift the focus, or do you have any other, like, questions or thoughts on that front?
No, no, I think everything was good.
Okay, so then let's shift the focus from, like, specifically, like, what are you doing to bring clients in the door, to, like, once they're in the door, what does that inquiry process look like for you?
Yeah, so once I send an inquiry and I use HoneyBook, which has been
Okay.
super helpful. I'll send
Are
them a
you happy with
response.
the prices that you're paying for that?
Honestly, no, but I don't know what else to use. And I'm in a world where I don't have as much automation or templates in there anyway, so I'm definitely flexible to use something else. So, I mean, I know we might be shifting a little bit, but like I would love your input on that as well as far as like, okay, like obviously there's other CRMs out there that we can use. I've looked into IO Planner because I felt like that might have been a more professional CRM for planners. And I haven't recently, like, I don't remember the pricing of that compared to HoneyBook now, but I think when I did look into it, I was like, I really can't afford this. Like, there's not that many full, like, in a world where, like, if I have my 3 offerings, like, I don't have as many partial and full clients that Aisle Planner would benefit from.
Yep.
And I'm not really gonna use such a beautiful CRM for, like, the wedding management couples.
Yep.
So I didn't really entertain that
Mhm.
idea more. I'm not so sure. I love Google. I also use almost all my client calls on Google Meet. When I onboard my couples, I give them a planner folder in Google Drive. So I'm very in Google. Um, Even recently, like, the coordinator that I onboarded, like she has her own Google thing. We're working on like the shared drive together of like adding templates and stuff like that. But I don't use any Google Forms. I don't know if that would be an opportunity there. Like, I'm not so sure really.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. I definitely want to hit, like, the, like, once they are your client, like, what that looks like. Let's kind of back up to, like, the inquiry process, and we'll talk about HoneyBook for a minute.
Okay.
I, as a planner, I hate HoneyBook.
Okay.
It is expensive, for what you're, like, probably using it for. You're probably using it for contracts and for invoicing and maybe some email automations throughout the process. Yeah.
Mhm.
As a client, like, when I have clients that are working with vendors that use HoneyBook, I despise when it tells me that I have to go and get a code to log into that client's, like, portal. Like, that from, like, it's just, like, it's, like, an extra step, and, like, if I don't have my phone on me, like, I've gotta go find my phone and, like, get in. And I think it's expensive. I mean, I know that they also like bumped their prices up significantly as of late. Um, so I think like if you're just using your CRM for like your contracts, your invoicing, like email automations, I think that there is a lot more affordable kind of routes to go. I personally use 17 Hats, and I think I pay like $147 a year. And it has all of those capabilities in terms of I don't personally I do use IO Planner for like any of my client facing things like contracts, invoices, like their planning portals, like that sort of thing. But 17 Hats does have like that payment and contracting and email like capabilities. So I think there's definitely kind of an opportunity to kind of save in that area. I'm not sure what you're paying for HoneyBooks, but I think it's like something crazy. Like at least I heard it was like $60 a month or like
I
something.
think it's going up to like 40 or 50 because I was already paying, I think, $40 a month. So like even if
Okay.
it's $40 a month times 12, that's $480 a year. So if you're
Right.
spending 600 something, that sounds a lot better. So
Yep.
why, if you don't mind me asking, like why are you using 17 hats and aisle planner? Is it just because
Yeah.
kind of had
Yeah, that's a great question. So for 17 Hats, I use it for like my workflow automations of like, and I will pull up so that you can see like what I'm talking about. I'm such a visual person. I like to um
January, so am I.
be able to see that stuff. So with 17 Hats, what I've done, how do I share a screen in here? I think you can see this. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So within 17 Hats, what you can do is you can go in and hold on, I think we're covering, like our faces are covering what I need to see. You can
Thank
go
you.
in and build out different workflows. So I have a couple of different workflows. So like for example, wedding management. This is every single step that I need to do in order to like complete a wedding management package. And so what I've done is I've gone, and got super detailed in terms of like every single thing that I want to do. And I think that this will help, especially like this is something that's like crucial to have, especially like if you want to build a team, which we'll talk about at the end, but like being able to provide a consistent client experience in terms of like no matter who your lead planner is, like everybody's getting the same. And even if like you're the only lead planner, like everybody that you're serving is getting the exact same experience. They are able to kind of make sure you don't drop the ball on anything, especially
Mhm.
like 17 Hats was my saving grace when I was working a 9 to 5 and also doing weddings at the same time because it will tell you exactly like for example, let's go into like a different project. Let's do like this one. Um, so it'll tell me like, okay, on January 4th, which this is just like a random check-in, and they had like already sent me an email that month. So I didn't want to like send them another message. But like on February 12th, like that's like the 90-day out mark when I guarantee my clients that we will get started. So it has a reminder for me on February 12th, like this email needs to be sent. And then it has like specific dates of like everything needs to happen on, which and you can go in and you can schedule like so say like I'm ready to send this email, I can like go ahead and like batch all of my work and then like schedule it to go out on the day that it's supposed to go out so that way nothing is getting dropped on like as like no balls getting dropped on my end, and everyone is kind of getting all of the pieces that they want. So I love 17 Hats for that functionality of that. As I book a client, I only have to assign them a workflow and then it automatically populates all of these things for me. From a so 17 Hats, like as a nutshell, is like my workflow task manager. I think that for me, I didn't want, so since I do use IO Planner, I didn't want my clients to like receive a contract or an invoice from 17 Hats, but then also have a login to IO Planner. I thought that like just having everything in IO Planner just simplified it, so that they have one place that they go and log in and everything is there, like their contracts, their invoicing, like their project, that sort of thing. So that's why I don't use 17 Hats for like that part of the business. But I love the functionality of kind of being able to schedule in all these emails will come from like my Jordan at Boundless Love Events email address. So they look like very branded, like very like consistent with like if I was just going to send an email out to them. Um does that answer your question? I think I like went on
It
a
does.
rant.
It does, and I guess my question is also like, okay, because you have like, the clientele and like the money coming in, you can afford both
Mhm.
CRM, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm telling you, like, if IO Planner isn't in the cards right now, like, use
Yeah.
17 Hats, and then that they do have, like, the contracting and invoicing, functionality. So, you can add in, let's see, so, like, you can create, like, invoices and contracts and all of that stuff within this, and so, since they wouldn't have access into IO Planner, like, they would, like, be receiving contracts and invoices and things like that, through 17 Hats, and from, like, a getting it from, like, a client perspective, it's just, like, a link that they have to, like, go in, but if they wanna ever go back and look at their contract, like, they would have to, like, log in to 17 Hats, if that makes sense. Um, so the first time that they get it, they can just like open it up and sign the doc, similar to like how HoneyBook is, but it's like a fraction of the cost. Like again, like $147 per year versus $50 per month. That money adds up, and you can reinvest that money into something else in your business, or you can take it and have like a fun vacation or something like that. So I'm all about like keeping expenses in check, and like yes you do need some softwares, and if you did decide to kind of cut HoneyBook, it sounds like you're already doing like anything that Aisle Planner would do, like in terms of timelines, layouts, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
in the Google Drive anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't think it doesn't make sense in my mind for you to cut that, because you would still need some way to be able to share those documents with your clients.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like I can see myself using again 17 hats plus like the Google
Yeah.
suite.
Yep. Yep.
And again, kind of similar to maybe how you did it is once you started having like a more steady like income and could really
Mhm.
afford that other
Yep.
software, then add IO Planner.
Yep.
Um, but no, but this is definitely a lot. Like I can see myself using this, and just the workflow is something that I definitely um
Mhm.
want to come back to.
So
And
then, yeah, that's great. And like I said, there are other options out there. There's just Dubsado, there's
yeah,
17 Hats, there's a plethora. I even think like Google has like a contract like signing option within Google. So, kind of just don't do HoneyBook just because like that's what you feel like you need to do. I think there's a lot of people in the wedding industry, and there's like a lot of like noises saying like, oh, HoneyBook is the best option, but it's not always the best option.
no, I agree. And again, right now I'm in this really nice space where like, yeah, the contracts and the invoicing is there, but if I'm going to be speaking to you frankly, that's really the only things that I'm using it for because I haven't had a chance to add any email templates into it, work on the
Yep,
automation and things like that. So
yep.
everything I am doing in HoneyBook is very manual. So kind of to answer your question of like once I get an inquiry in, like I am having to manually respond to that. Like I'm responding to that, sharing my pricing, trying to set up a phone call, right?
Yeah, do you have, I'm gonna go back to being able to see you. Do you have, so when you're manually responding, do you have like an email template that like is like a canned email that you like copy and paste and maybe personalize a little bit?
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
perfect. And then how are you sharing like pricing and investment information?
I used to in HoneyBook just attach the file, but now I just put a link on Canva from Canva.
Perfect. Can we pull that up? I would love
Yeah,
to.
I can definitely show you. Let me pull that up in all my many.
And just to like while you're pulling that up to give you like some encouragement, I manually respond to every single inquiry. I think it gives me a level of control of being able to see the date and if that's something that I'm available for or if it would be a good fit, like that sort of thing. And so I do have like a template of like I copy and paste like the same email that goes out to everybody, but I like to manually like be able to respond to that so that I can choose
True.
a good fit. So I don't think like that. I mean, that sounds aligned. I mean, I'm sure there are like options to automate that, but I don't think it's necessary.
No, and I like there's I've been on the other side of getting that automated email that's like
Yep.
very the same and like almost like immediate. And I'm like, is this a robot, responding to me?
Yep.
I don't really know how I feel about that so much. So,
Mhm. Okay.
okay, so this is the pricing guide.
Amazing.
Um,
Scroll through.
this way? No. If I do this way, oh, you know what? I can just do it this way. Okay. So this is a pricing guide. It has, just a little congratulations. I do subscribe to what it's called, I think the planner's playbook. So this template is from there.
Okay.
Um, but I just copied and pasted a lot of my stuff.
Yeah, I
I
love
already had.
that.
So using just kind of their template. So full planning, design and coordination package starts at like 8. I will be very honest with you, Jordan, these numbers came from just random. So like
I love
I
it.
almost feel like if I were to meticulously like allocate like my time an hour, I'd be probably crying the fact that I'm making like $2 an hour.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love the honesty there. Okay, so then that's the full planning. Okay.
And then so it kind of goes through like some of the design. And again, being super honest, this is pretty much used from a template. I like went through all the bullet points and was like, oh yeah, that looks really cool. That sounds really cool. I would love to do that. But realistically speaking, and I'm gonna get very honest and vulnerable with you, I can't really do everything that I'm honestly promising. And
Yeah.
what ended up happening with my second kid, I got postpartum depression. I had to get on meds. I'm on meds. We're on therapy. We're doing great. We're thriving now. We're doing a lot better.
Good.
But it was very hard to service my clients the way I wanted to when just something was going wrong with me. Like I couldn't. Like I literally could not. I would set up my to-do list. I would get everything I need to do and I would just look at it and just go hide in my room and just like probably cry. To the point where I got a very scary email from a client. And the timing was so funny because I had talked to my therapist specifically about this client. I was like, I feel like I'm not reaching their deadlines. I feel like, some things I'm not working the way I want to work, but I can't, right? So I got an email from them basically saying, like, we're not happy with this, if this doesn't continue, which Jordan, I could have written that myself and be like, yes, I approve this message. Like, I totally understand. I surprisingly didn't cry about it because I was like, yeah, like I knew, right? But I did come up with like a workflow of like I made it better. And I kind of like the way that I'm making it better. Like we're doing like biweekly like check-in reports where I like chart everything I'm working on for them. We have monthly setup calls that I've already done, like, and we're working on things. But that was a really big like slap in the face and kind of like a shake of me of like, okay, like what can you actually do? Like, I know what you want to do, but like what's realistic right now? So that's something that I kind of want to preface as we go through this
Yeah.
because this is an opportunity that I would really want to myself just go through and be like, okay, what can you actually provide for your clients, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for
So
sharing that. I know that that's hard to that's a really hard situation to kind of overcome. So,
I definitely we need to talk about it. It's gonna happen to a lot of us, so why not? And this is partial. Before my pricing for this was $4,500, and this was almost like the sweet spot of a lot of people were paying for partial. And I'm so curious what you think of partial and or how you do partial because
yeah.
most of the time, because I want to book a client, I'll say, "Oh, you just have your venue, perfect, great, you're partial," and
Okay.
end up doing and then I end up doing like all the work, right?
Yeah. No. No.
Um,
No.
so I recognize that.
Uh-huh. Can I
And
see what the next couple slides look like in terms of what you say for that one?
so this is just planning. Again, pretty. And I can send you this link later.
Yeah, that would be great, especially, like, as I'm making, like, an action plan.
Yeah. And then this is just the event management package.
Perfect. Um,
Um, and then just like referral, like what's it
like,
called?
reviews and stuff, yeah, but that's perfect. Yeah, I think that's great.
Come in, and then just a little bit of pictures just towards the end.
Pretty. Okay. Cool. I love that, I really love that it's, like, very clean and, like, it's easy to read through all of this. I like that it is, kind of broken down into, like, the different packages so that they can see, like, which one makes sense, and then there's kind of some images that go with it. So, yeah, I think that, having some type of investment guide, like, in that inquiry process, they can kind of self-select a little bit of, like, what might be a good fit for them. And we're gonna revisit that package situation here in just a second. But I definitely want to because I think the inquiry process is so vital to like being able to book more clients. That I want to kind of like dive into that just a little bit more. So as you're inquiring, you're manually responding to them with that investment guide, which I think is great. How do they set up a meeting with you? Or
I will
just the
just
next
yeah, I asked them in that email, it's like, are you free like Monday or Tuesday? Let me know.
okay.
Because again, with my corporate job, just things can switch so much that like sometimes I just can't. Like, and Honeybook has that scheduling of like,
Mhm,
here's my calendar. And I love that functionality so much. I think it's super helpful. But again, because of my corporate job, it
mhm,
sometimes feels really hard for me to specifically allocate that time. However, because I am also remote, I do have the flexibility of taking a call from like a 9 to 5 area and leaving the after 5 for my family and doing dinner and kids and put down and things like that.
mhm.
So I to answer your question, I just asked them like, oh, or let's say like, are you available Monday or Tuesday with the hope of like, oh yeah, we're free Monday. And then I can go back and be like, okay, this is the times that I'm available.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good. I think something that at least I've found is that clients like they
Hmm.
want it to be easy. Like they don't want to go back and forth of like if they're not available Monday or Tuesday, like no, sorry, we're not available. And then you're like, well, what about Thursday? Sorry, we can only do this time. Like that back and forth, like makes it feel like really hard. And it's kind of almost sending to like the specific client, like it has been sending the wrong message of like it's hard to work with me. So something that I use, and it is a scheduling tool, but it can link to different calendars. So it's called Calendly, and similar to like how you scheduled this meeting today, like you picked. Well, I guess you didn't do that. Sorry, I meant to do that, but I only have like it's a free account, and so you can only do like an hour long meetings, and this one was going to be longer, so we manually did it. But what they do is like they go in and they hold on, let me pull up Calendly. Um,
Free account.
yep, it's a free account. And then it will link to your calendars. So like it can link to a work calendar, it can link to a like a personal calendar, anything like that. And what it will do is it will show the client, it'll show them, okay, if I'm gonna book on Friday, 12 o'clock is my only option. Okay, well, maybe that doesn't work for me. So like, let's look at Thursday. Oh, okay, like I can do this. And then they can schedule it themselves and it will automatically get added to your calendar. And then so from the back end, like what I do is I have, like this is, yikes. This is my calendar. And so like if I have something that comes up at like 3 o'clock, I can go in and I can just do like a hold and then it will automatically update my availability on Calendly. So like for example, let's see. So like for example, if I had something on Tuesday at 11, like if I wanted to do Tuesday at 11, you can see on my calendar here, this is like a personal, like blue is personal and then like orange is or red is a different one. So it's linking to both. But if I went ahead and did like a hold here, it will go into Calendly and it will automatically update. So like if you have like something personal come up like that you have set business hours, but then you have something come up, like you can see 11 is no longer an option.
Oh my goodness.
So
Okay.
it is so, so helpful. And I think kind of creating that like seamless experience of like
Yeah.
just having a link at the bottom of like, I'm so excited to talk with you. Feel free to grab a time on my calendar that works best for you. And then being able to like let them self schedule that. And then all that you have to do is just, I'm sure that you have a calendar to keep track of all of your life anyway. And so it just automatically is like linking to that. So I would definitely encourage you to potentially like look into that.
It
Um,
definitely will because HoneyBook, I feel like I have to manually go in and like it,
remove times and stuff like that. This one, I love that it's automatic, that if I just need to put something, like if I know I have something come up, like I just go ahead and put it on my calendar and then I don't have to go and worry about like updating like a client link as well. So
no, I love this. Thank you so much, Jordan. This
yeah,
was
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then they've responded, you have the meeting. So tell me how a consultation goes with you. Like what does that
okay,
look
yes. I always start by saying I can never sell a pen to save my life because I can't. Like sales is just not my forte at all, which sucks because I know I need to sell for business.
like?
But I usually kind of go talking about them, how they met. I want to know like how they met, how the engagement was. I usually be like, oh, like were you excited? Like tell me a little bit about it. Did you go ring shopping? Like I like to get to know them better.
Yep.
I obviously share some personal stories of myself so they also know that like, oh my gosh, she's been through the same thing with me. Um, I will always kind of somehow, and this is always just a funny thing because, again, coming from the planning world of even planning my own wedding, I will forever and always remember the time where I was on my couch crying to Jaime, being like, "We can't afford this. Like, why is everything so expensive?" So again, I kind of share any personal stories that will make them feel better about just wedding planning and how it can be. Um, and then I kind of asked them to tell me a little bit about their wedding, what they're looking for. And somehow within that conversation, it always kind of comes down to like, and we're looking for a coordinator. And I'm
Mhm.
like, great, cool. Like, this is what I have for you. Like, we can go over the package or any questions you may have. And then we will go through it. If they have any questions, we'll answer those. And then, yeah, and then the closing I know is going to be so bad, but I'll be honest with you, it's just like, okay, well, let me know.
Yeah, no, that's what I do. I kind of I tell them I'm going to leave the ball in your court. If you guys are interested in kind of moving forward and next steps, just let me know and I can send over, contract and booking information, but I never want I'm not a hard seller. Like I want it to be a good fit for everyone involved. And so, I want you to like think about it. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I'm not going to like make you make a decision right now. Sort of
Yes.
thing. And
And
I
that's,
think everyone has their own selling style, and I think that's clearly a very valid, valid way to do it. So,
yeah.
uh,
And I always kind of tell like just other people that like, I know I'm in a very, very blessed situation where I don't need the
mhm,
money, where I have the luxury of having my 9 to 5 cover my financial needs. So I am also more intentional, kind of like you said, like I want it to be a good fit. Like I want to love you as much as you love me. Like that's how I want to do it, you know?
you tell people that, like you
No.
tell like the potential clients that, or you tell just like in general, like you like that's your
Oh,
philosophy.
that's just like kind of me in
Okay,
general.
I was like, oh gosh, don't tell me.
No, 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 no,
Okay,
no, no,
okay,
no.
okay.
I don't tell clients that. No, absolutely not.
Okay, perfect. All right, so great. So then, how long are these usually?
Usually about like 30 minutes, 30, 45 minutes.
Right. Yeah, I think um, that's a good one. And then what do you feel like your like booking rate is? Like if you have you ever like looked into like your numbers of like you've scheduled this many consultations and this many have booked? Like is it like a 50%? Is it like a 90%? Like what do you think your
I
booking?
haven't been tracking that to be very honest with you. At the beginning of my business, I definitely was tracking in like a very cute spreadsheet of like inquiries. Did I schedule it? Like I was very meticulous about it.
Yep.
But I think as life happened and 2 kids
Yep.
happened, I stopped.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And that is not something that I think that you need to like you need to like micro like down into. Like I
Yeah.
think you could think of it through like a high level perspective of like, okay, in 2024 I had 50 inquiries and 7 of them booked. So, like thinking through like what that looks like, at least from like a end of the year perspective, or like, maybe every quarter, something like that, where it's like you're not like tracking every single one that comes in, because yeah, that's tedious. But I do think that it could be helpful like in telling you like, okay, is my booking rate, is it working? Like if it's a 90%, like girl, what your consultations are doing, that's working. Like that is like that structure is great. So kind of thinking through that and looking at like what that booking rate is, I think could be like really eye-opening to you. And I do a very similar like kind of structure to my consultations of I start with, like tell me a little bit about your story of like, tell me about, I usually try to keep it like relatively like condensed of like I try to make the consultations all about the couple. Like I will like infuse like little like tidbits of like if I find out they're a JMU couple of like, oh yeah, like I went to JMU too, like go Dukes, or something like that. But I try not to like talk about me too much, because people love talking about themselves.
Mhm.
And as they're talking about themselves, they really start to like build that like and know and trust factor. And this is like sales is like such a psychology thing that like it's like one of those things that like as they're talking about each other, like dopamine, or like talking about themselves and their story, dopamines are like flowing in their brain of like they're in like a good mood and like more, there's like science behind this of like more receptive to like purchase. So I'm not trying to be manipulative or anything like that. I just try to like,
It's just good information to have and know.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's one of those that like I'm not withholding information, but like if I, can like slightly throw in things about like, oh, like yeah, I went to JMU too, like go Dukes, like when were you there? Like that sort of thing. Like just to build that relationship again. I think I'm very relational with my couples. And so like if
Yeah.
I do have connections, I like to like let them know that. But I try to like keep the focus on them. I usually will ask a handful of questions like, how did you guys meet? Like where do you live? Like what do you do for work? If they like somehow like a dog pops up, I'm like, oh, like tell me about your dog. Like what kind of dog is it? Like how old? Like what's his name? Like that sort of thing. And then I do switch to wedding related questions in terms of like very specific things that I think are helpful for me. There's a couple of those. I think one of them is specifically around like, what drew you to your venue. And then you kind of start getting to learn a little bit more about like, okay, what kind of drew them to choosing this venue? Like what is important to them? And then kind of like some logistics of like guest count size, like what roughly are you thinking? Do you have any other vendors booked at this point? Kind of what's important to you, what feels really overwhelming or stressful when it comes to wedding days. And I always kind of that like transition question, the last question I will always ask is kind of what are your expectations, or what are you hoping to get out of the investment with a planner?
Mhm.
And that like is very telling of not only necessarily like sometimes people will tell you ahead of time of like I'm interested in the wedding management package or I'm interested in full planning. Sometimes people will kind of mention that in the upfront, but I do think that like their answer to that question is like like are they going to be a good fit for like the service or like the offerings
Yeah.
that you have, and then B, like that will tell you kind of like how to tailor the conversation with your packages. um so that's kind of like what I do like on the like, first half of the conversation, and then the second half I will kind of pull up my investment guide. I won't like share my screen, but like I'll have it on the other side, and like depending on which one that they want or like are most interested in, I will like practically like walk them through like what it would look
Yeah.
like to work together. And this is something where I think like once you nail down like your workflows, you'll be able to sell the package like way more confidently, because you know
Yeah.
exactly what somebody is getting when they are booking a wedding management package. You'll know exactly what like what that process for you looks like, and then in turn like what it will look like from their perspective. So I will very detailed like go through, okay, first we're going to build out your timeline, you're going to answer this questionnaire, I'm going to like base on my preferences, then you'll have planning sessions, this is what those are for, that sort of thing. 90 days out is where we're really going to kick off things into high gear, this is what we're going to be doing at this point, and like that sort of thing. And then my goal is to answer all of the questions that I think that they might have in that like overview. Usually I keep it under 10 minutes, like 5 to 10 minutes or so is what that overview is. And I try to jam pack it with as much information as possible so that that way they like when I get to like, I'm sure like that was a lot that I just threw out at you. Like, what kind of questions do you have about like what that would look like or entail or what it would look like to work together? And I would say 90% of the time people are like, huh, you answered all my questions.
Yeah.
as a planner, that shows you like that shows them like you know what you're talking about. You have a very clear, like you're organized, you're detail oriented, like you have a clear structure, which I think are all things that people are looking for, like when it comes to planners. And so I think that that's been a structure that I found that's like really helpful. And then at the end, like again, like we talked about, like I'll tell them, we're leaving the ball in your court for now. Like you guys think about it, talk about it. If you have any other questions, let me know. But otherwise, kind of let me know kind of if you guys would like to move forward in booking. So um that is kind of like what a consultation looks like for me. It sounds like we have a very similar structure based on kind of like those buckets that you shared. So that sounds really awesome. And then the last kind of piece of like the inquiry process is like following up. So like if you've got like people that have inquired but haven't scheduled a consultation, like are you following up with those people once they've had a consultation? If you haven't heard back from them, like what does like a follow-up look like once somebody inquires and maybe you have or haven't booked yet?
Yeah, no, so great question. I think, when they send an inquiry over and I send them my like template, and they don't respond, again, I think I'm in this weird position where I'm not a hard seller, like you said. I'll just reach out and be like, "Hey, just wanted to know if you have any questions. If you're still interested, would love to set up some time to talk and go through anything."
Yep.
And leave it at that. If they don't,
Just one follow-up if they don't respond.
yeah. Because it's usually the fact that like they'll look at the price and be like, "Oh, can't afford it," or "Don't want it," or they found something cheaper.
Hmm.
Kind of what I found. So that's that. But if we do an inquiry, like do a consultation call, which I have a random question.
Yeah.
Do you call them consultation calls or do you call them discovery calls?
I say consultation. I think that those words are like kind of used like interchangeably. I feel like consultation feels like a little bit more elevated, which is a little bit more aligned with like my branding. But I think that they're probably about the same. Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious because like I use the word consultation too, but I
Yeah.
feel like everybody else does discovery, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
I don't think it necessarily like is a big deal, but I like consultation better.
so after the consultation call, and I also very much leave it to them, because it takes time to create a proposal. I don't want to take the time if they're not
I don't
gonna
want to do it unless you're booking either.
follow. Um, I usually kind of again leave it up to them. Depending on when it was, I'll give them like anywhere from like 4 days of thinking about it and be like, hey, just wanted to check in to see if you had any additional questions. Is there anything I can I can answer for you? Um, Let me know like what you are thinking in terms of next steps and if you would like to see like a proposal or contract sent over so we can get started.
Perfect. That's great. And so one after a consultation as well.
Yeah, and again, usually if they ghost me from there, it's because they probably met with another person that's probably again cheaper.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's great. And how do you like organize, like if you've followed up, like is there like any way that you organize like inquiries coming through? Or is that all through HoneyBook?
So HoneyBook has like a pipeline kind of thing.
Yep.
But most of the time, because I'm getting so few
Mhm.
stuff, I can just kind of honestly just think about it. And
Okay.
I think like Google can also like, how it says dismiss the nudge or whatever. Like that's also like a telling of like, oh, it's probably time for me to follow up.
Perfect.
But I usually have like a little manually kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that that probably works for now. I think that it would be helpful probably to think through like what that could look like as you want
Yeah, for sure.
now. Um, and it doesn't have to be like anything like crazy. I can show you kind of like what I use Trello, which is another free like task management software. And I use Trello for like everything. Like I have like business information that has like my taxes on it. Like I've got like my week of like my to-do list and like project management and team management, and like I even have like another workspace with like all of my gallery links and like all of the stuff. So I love Trello. I'm a huge proponent of Trello, but having some way like this is how I track of like, okay, these people have inquired with me, and if they have like a one follow-up, I followed up with them once, and I do like the three strikes and then you're out kind of thing of
Mhm.
like I send them the initial inquiry. So all of these people have had like just the initial inquiry. And then I send you one follow-up a week later if I haven't heard back from you. I send you a second follow-up a week after that if I have not heard back from you. And then the third one, I say, hey, I'm just checking in one last time to see if you're interested. Here's our link. And then I send them once I take them off my list. So like next week, Betsy's going to get an email from me that says, hey, like just wanted to let you know, I'm assuming that you've moved on or booked another planner at this point. I am going to take you off my list, but if anything has changed, sometimes people like life gets busy and emails get buried. And so I
Yeah.
think having one follow-up, like I have so many people that are in this like one or two, they're like, oh gosh, like so sorry. Like I've just been so busy this week and, they still want to work with you and you're like losing business, when you only follow up, potentially with them one time. And so I think that kind of three strikes you out. So then anyway, so once they've like inquired, if they schedule a consultation, they kind of go under this column. And this is where like I keep notes from like all of like the questions that I'll ask like so I can keep notes about like that specific client. And then once they've had their consultation, I switch them over to this follow-up section of like, okay, these people have had conversations. These are different templates that I follow up once we've had a consultation of, hey, it was so great to talk with you. I'm excited about your wedding, whatever. I don't remember exactly what it says, but I have all the templates over here. So I just have to copy and paste every week. And then once I've sent a contract, I send it over here and then signing and waiting for a deposit is over here. So I only check this once a week. I sit down and I have 15, 20 minutes on Monday and I go through all of these and do all my follow-ups and then kind of leave a week. And then the next week I come back and, kind of do the next step with everybody. So this is like the only like super manual part is like adding every time I get an inquiry, like I add the person and like the date and like who the planner would be into there. So it's been a super helpful tool to kind of just make sure I'm not like leaving business on the table. And kind of keeping track of inquiries through that mechanism.
No, I love that. Again, I have like also like a very hard time, to be honest with you. Like I see all these beautiful like organizations and I really want to do it, but I also just with my corporate job, like I just don't have the
Yeah,
time. And
that's a lot.
I know I'm just setting up excuses for myself. And I know, let's say like one day of PTO will 100% be worth it if I just get all my systems together. And that is like
Hmm.
goal of mine. Like I really like I'm serious about this. I want to
Yep.
excel. I want to do good. So it might just be a thing of like, okay, like wow, like when I had looked into Calendly, I maybe didn't realize that it was syncing up all my calendars and I can sync up my work calendar. Like that's so cool. Like I'm gonna now really be intentional about hiring, like booking, like grabbing that tool or like Trello. Like I've heard so many great things about Trello. But I'm
It's
also very
overwhelming on like how to use it if you've never used it before. Like I totally get that.
Yeah, and I'm also very like overwhelmed in the good way. Like I don't know if you've seen those like family calendars too.
Oh yeah, the skylight things. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. My husband wants to get me one. I'm like, I think that would be great, but I also don't want to get too into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So things like that can like overwhelm me very quickly.
Like the implementation of like you have all these ideas, but like how do you make them? Okay. Yeah. Is that something that like you would be looking to outsource of like potentially like if somebody could set those things up for you, like would that be like worth it for you?
Yes, at this point in time, I honestly would find the money for it. And I know we're coming up on time, but like something else that I have been outsourcing that I would love to share with you is that like I did go ahead and sign a contract for a rebrand and a website refresh.
Okay.
So again, I want to be intentional with again what I'm doing in 2025. Like I'm totally okay taking a pause from booking more and having more sales stuff if I can get the bones to where I want it to be. And then maybe in 2026, kick it into high gear. Like in
Mhm.
my job, like I'm a firm believer SOPs. Like I want to do the workflow. Like I'm very natural as far as like organizing the mess and like, okay,
Mhm.
let's take it back. Like what's step one? What's step two? And it's really frustrating that like I can do that with my corporate job because I feel like I have the time for it and not do it for my business. Cause it's like
Oh,
I love my business. I love what I do, Jordan. Like I really,
uh-huh.
really love it. I get so much satisfaction of like being on site. Like everybody talks about the mom shame. Jordan, I never experience mom shame when I'm at weddings. Like
Yeah.
I'm happy to pump wherever I need to pump, happy to do wherever. I know my kids are fine. Like I've never
Yeah.
experienced mom shame when I'm at
Oh,
weddings
good.
because I'm so happy, right? Um, and just even getting a text from like, oh my gosh, like thank you so much. You were amazing. Like
Means a lot.
the best thing that I can get versus my corporate job. Like, there's nothing that compares that satisfaction and happiness that I get from a couple with
Mhm.
my corporate job.
Yep.
Um, so yes, to kind of answer your question, go back to it. Yes, if someone could set up like again the Trello, the workflows,
Mhm.
help me just be like, okay, this is where you could insert a template. Like I'm subscribed to Planner's Playbook, which is like almost $50 a month, which I probably should rethink. To get all the templates, to get all the email stuff, the swipe files.
And
I
it's great to get
remember
those, but having somebody to be able to implement them is a whole nother thing. Yeah. So again, in another past life, I worked for an agency that like did implementations for like small businesses like this, like setting up Show It and Kajabi's and back end of like all of the like tools and tech. So that's something that I've been exploring of like, is that something that I could do for like other like small businesses and stuff. So that's so interesting that you said that. But so with the rebrand, I think that it's really amazing that you are like willing to put in the work because it's one of those things that like what you put out there is like what you attract. So if you put I'm not saying go and spend like multiple thousands of dollars to like redo your website. I think there's way better ways to like DIY in a way, but as long as it like looks nice, it's one of those things that like people will pay a premium because you are giving them like the visuals that they, want. So I think adding your rebrand is going to be able to like increase your price point and like that sort of thing and that having the workflows on the back end is going to be able to help you sell it so much more. And so I think that
yeah,
a lot of these things are like intertwined, and so once we get the wheels on the bus, so to speak, I think that it's going to be one of those things that would be really like propel your business really
yeah,
far. um, I did want to make sure that we have a little bit of time to kind of talk through packages because that was something I think like,
yeah,
or I guess in hearing we've kind of gone through marketing and consultations, and I'll just like slightly touch on like the ideal client. I think that one of those things, I think the industry, like, especially like I felt this when I first started out. I was like, ideal client, I don't know, somebody that's going to pay my prices. Like, like, I don't know, like who that person is. I think that the more clients you take, not every client is going to be your ideal client. I do
yeah,
not work with my ideal clients all the time. Like, there are definitely clients where I'm like, ugh, like that was just for, to be able to have another wedding on the books to like pay the bills sort of thing.
yeah,
Like, there are seasons where that is the case. And but I think that like after you do so many weddings, you're going to be able to think back and be like, oh, Maggie and Garrett, like they were the best to work with. And then start like ideal, like taking like things about Maggie and Garrett. They both had like really intense, like full-time jobs, and they valued my expertise and opinion because they outsourced to me. They, think about all the things that like you liked about them, and then you start to build like an ideal client like character, and then that ideal client character influences your marketing messaging and like your website and all of those things of like things that you think that that person would like, and that sort of thing. So that's a little bit about ideal client. I think there's some of these other pieces that like your ideal client will come as you like start putting
yeah,
them. So I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, but I did see that a couple of times in your questionnaire that at least wanted to like mention it a little bit.
yeah. And I think again, like I know what I don't want, and that's again the luxury part of
Yep.
Lauren. And like one thing that like the girl who's redesigning the website and doing the branding, she was like, I think we should market you as luxury. I was like, the L word. I don't know if I'm comfortable with the
Mhm.
L word. She goes, well, it doesn't really mean what you think it might mean. I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. Like, we're gonna have to think about that. Um,
Well, I would say Lauren is more of like an ultra luxury. So like there's definitely different tiers in the
now
market.
it's
You've
become
got
more
like
of a thing.
your
Yeah.
DIY, your budget. They're probably not even hiring a coordinator, like let's be honest. And then you've got kind of your lovely market where, they're paying, anywhere from $250 or $250 per guest to probably, $750 per guest, like those sort of budgets. And then you kind of like once you kind of hit the like $1,000 per guest plus, like that's when you're in like the luxury market of, you're doing, say you have 100 people, like $100,000 weddings, like those
Yeah.
sort of things. Like that's kind of like the peak to like starting in the luxury space, in my opinion. But I think that you still have to have like nice branding and things like have to look visually nice, especially in today's day and age. People are so drawn to
Visual. Yeah.
that sort of like visual, and so kind of attracting like the couple that you want. So um Let's talk about your workflows and like the packaging. So specifically around the you said it earlier where you don't even think that like you can offer like what is in there. I think a really cool exercise would be to like sit down and like make it very concrete clear of like these things are included in this package, because I think that planning is one of those things that a lot of us get into it because we have a heart for like helping people and like making their lives easier. And I think people can take advantage of that, especially as you're in like that lower like DIY budget type weddings. Like, I mean, you said it earlier where they're like, you work 10 times more for half of the cost, sort of thing. And so I think that having a very like clear boundaries on like what you do and what you don't offer in each of the different kind of packages is like so helpful. So I think that that's going to be part of my like plan for you of like write out like every single thing that you want to include in that. And I would make wedding management like your base package, like
Yeah.
start there and say, okay, what is the minimum amount of things that I need to do in order to provide the level of
Yeah.
service that I want to provide, and include that. And then, what you're gonna do is you're gonna like price out like, okay, if I need to do all of these things, like how long does it take me to build a timeline? An
Mhm.
hour, 2 hours, like figure out how many hours that package will take you, and then like give yourself like a reasonable hourly rate, and then like add in like the taxes of like that you would pay on that, and add in all of the things so that that way you can be paid like you're not working for $2 an hour. Like you're
Yeah.
actually getting paid for kind of what you're putting into it hourly wise. And if you kind of see it and it comes back of like, ooh, I don't know that anyone would pay that for
Yeah.
wedding management. Like if it comes back of like $5,000, I mean, yes, there are people that will, but I would say kind of like the peak that I've seen like 4,000 is probably like anywhere from like 2,500 to 4,000, I think is like competitive in the market of like full planning or sorry, wedding management. And so if your numbers come back and it's like, oh, like it would be actually $5,000, then what you do is, okay, what can I take away that, makes sense to take away? And, don't give away the cow
Yeah.
for everything, don't bet the farm on it, but kind of like do that exercise of like writing out everything that's included in that, and then kind of assign a value to it that makes you excited and makes you feel worth it for you. So I'm going to make a note to like do that exercise. And then in terms of partial planning, um,
Mhm.
I think I feel like there might be a lot of value, especially like where you're at and like what season of life that you're in right now, to just focus on partial and wedding event
I
management.
kind of
Don't
agree with that.
even don't even put full planning on the table. And I think like over time we can reintroduce that back in. But for now, like as you're kind of building out these systems and workflows, um,
Yeah.
just having two that you're really good at, and then kind of adding on, more as time goes on and you're feeling a little bit more comfortable and kind of the offerings there. Because event full planning is like a whole nother beast of like there are like specific things that you offer within that, but then it's just like so much more. So kind of focusing on partial and event management, because I think both of those packages are like very clear of like, this is what I do, this is my jurisdiction, these are things I help you with for this price. And so the way that I like to do partial planning is that I have a couple of different things. They get an X amount of vendor recommendations. So for mine, it's four, and they can pick any four like custom vendor recommendations, and then I build out like all the information that I think that they need to consider before booking like the top recommendations for them. And I go in and like customize the vendor recommendations based on like their preferences, their budget, availability, style, that sort of thing. So they get four of those. So that kind of like takes the itch of like the vendor management, but there's still, I mean, there's way more than four vendors per wedding.
Um,
So they're still like doing a decent amount of upfront on that. They get into aisle planner from day one, just because aisle planner is expensive. So like if you're going to be in there for a year, like I want to make sure that we're covering that cost there. So I add an aisle planner from day one, and then with my event management people, they only get it 90 days out. And then for the vendors, the aisle planner, they get like within aisle planner like a like budgeting tool checklist, like that's why I really love aisle planner specifically for like those types of clients, because I think it's super helpful and people love like that
yeah.
like organization. And then they get to pick an add-on, so with the add-on, this is kind of like where they get to choose of like what makes the most sense for them, like what are they most interested in. I have four that I let them choose from, a budget proposal and management, and then like kind of keeping track of all the budget along the way.
Um,
Um, they have the option to do tablescape design. So this is where in rental coordination. So this is where I design the tablescapes in Canva, kind of show them like what that looks like. And then we like we present it, they like choose which one they like the best, like that sort of thing. And then once we've made a final tablescape design, then I will place a rental order for them and kind of manage that through the process. Option three is hotel block and accommodation coordination in terms of like sourcing and identifying hotels and transportation for their out of town guests. And then the fourth one, what is the fourth one? Oh, invitation design and assembly. So like designing invitations for them. Once they've selected it, all that stuff gets shipped to my office. I stuff them, seal them, address them, stamp them. I'll have set up their online RSVP for all the questions that we're going to need, and then kind of manage that through like the RSVP deadline. So that's where they get to pick one of those. And then they can always add on more if they want to. At some point, it becomes more advantageous to do full planning if they want multiple of those. And then they do get 6 planning sessions that they can use at any point during the process. So it is definitely like I've over time I've made it like very concrete, because if you don't make it like concrete of like exactly what you get, then it becomes one of those things where they not intentionally, I don't think anyone like intentionally takes advantage
yeah.
of people, but like it just becomes like a I need your help with everything, and that's not fair to you. So
I feel like the way that you've laid it out, you're creating those boundaries without being like, no, that's too much work for me. I'm not doing that.
it's
Because
one of
like,
those of like, I had a couple come back and they were like, "Hey, like I'm having a really hard time, finding a hair and makeup artist. Like I've been reaching out to everyone, I can't find anyone." And it's like, okay, like if you want me to like add that on, like this is what the cost is for an extra vendor recommendation, sourcing like that sort of thing, because they've already like they know they've already hit their maximum,
yeah.
and if they want to add on more, like that's where a lot of value as a planner comes in. Is like you have those like those connections and that sort of thing, and so it's a very like, yeah, like you said, it's creating boundaries, but also in a way that like isn't being negative about it. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
what
yeah.
you paid for, and if you want more, we can definitely add more, but um it's not going to be like a again taking advantage. I don't know any other way to say it, but
No, I understand. And you're about to see the baby for like a little bit because he needs to.
yeah, bring her in. Bring him in. Oh,
But say hi.
hi. Oh my gosh, she's precious.
So, I'm just gonna go like this so we can beat him. Because everything you mentioned, Jordan, is kind of everything I've been doing with partial planning. And it's just again, I know better. I
Mhm.
still do it. But it's very much I don't know. And I guess like my question, and I know we're almost running on time, but like
Yeah, you're good.
start with that package or as like your time, like as you started, going through your experience, your package for partial started evolving a little bit to that.
Yeah, it definitely has evolved over time. I think I was very I think that we have very similar stories, and like I didn't know like what was a reasonable ask, like, 4 or 5 years ago. But over time I've learned that like again, I need boundaries with like clients and specific packages, because I mean I need boundaries with all clients, but like specifically like when it comes to like the work that I'm doing, because as a planner, like we're not providing them a product necessarily, like we're providing them our time. And so I want to make sure that I'm, not spending all of my time for this client that, is paying me, pennies on the dollar, by the time that I have put in, hundreds of hours for their day. Like I want to make sure that, and it's not fair. I don't think it's sustainable um to have that like eventually you're going to build some resentment, and you're going to not enjoy it as much as you do. And so I think that having those boundaries kind of helps preserve that, and I think it's really wise. So yeah, mine has evolved through, I think everyone has trial and error, but it for sure has evolved since I've started.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a little extra. I don't know like what your calendar looks like today, but I've got a little extra buffer time if there's anything specifically like with the packages or anything that like we haven't hit that you thought would be helpful.
Um, I'm trying to think. Honestly, like I feel like everything we've talked about, I have some action items that I'm very excited to work with. Like again, I'm definitely gonna look into 17 Hats, Calendly,
Mhm.
Trello, and like again, workflows and just getting all of those documentations together. I definitely am curious about, to your point of like refining our packages. And it's funny that you said like I think you should focus on these two packages because that's what I've been thinking about too, of like, okay, like the season of life that I'm in, like yeah, full is there, but like do I offer it if I really can't do it? Because it's a
Yeah,
lot, right? It's a lot of work,
it is.
and that's okay. Oh, my question. This is my one question that I would love to ask
Yeah.
you. I feel like me having a corporate job is
Mhm.
almost like a secret I have to keep from everybody.
Mhm.
Do you find it that it like, would you recommend that I'm like, and I'm not hiding it like, I guess I am hiding. I have this fear that like if I tell them, "Oh, I have a corporate job, a 9 to 5," they won't book me. They'll be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, well, we want a full-time planner."
Mhm.
But I work really hard that I can squeeze in emails. Like I am doing both, you know. My corporate job probably won't like to hear that. And as a ex-HR, sorry.
I was
um,
HR and I was doing it, so
there you go. I just don't. But I also like because I can work from like, a 9 to 5 on the business side too. I really don't wanna be taking, and I know I have to, so that's okay, but, like, I don't wanna be taking calls after 5. Like, I wanna be cooking dinner, I wanna be with my kids, like, we're putting them down at a certain time, and, like, again, like, I understand when and like, if I have to have a call, like, that's fine. Um, but oh, he's pulling wires, but
yeah,
I
I
don't.
think I'm following like kind of what you're
Yeah,
saying. So I think there's some twofold, and I don't think that I did everything, perfectly. I had a 9 to 5, and it was very much a season of hustle. Of like I knew that planning is what I wanted to do full time, and I knew that it was going to take essentially working two full time jobs to like make it happen. Because I was under the impression of like I want to make sure that if I'm going to take the jump to be full time, there's a couple of aspects of my life that I want to make sure that like are taken care of so that it feels less risky to me. I am, if you know me, like I am a very like risk adverse like person. Like I want
yeah,
to make sure that like yes there is a level of risk in like anything that you do. There's a level of risk working for a corporate 9 to 5. Like they can lay you off at any point. But
yeah,
I think that for me, there were a couple of pieces that I wanted to have in place before I felt comfortable like making that step. A couple of those were like I wanted to be personally out of debt. Like I wanted to make sure that aside from a mortgage, that's crazy, but like I wanted to make sure like we paid off our student loans, like we paid off our car. Like I wanted to make sure like some of those things were in place that I wasn't working for a paycheck. I didn't have to take a specific client because I like needed to make that payment to the bank. Like I wanted to make sure that there was like a little bit of like leeway there. Like, yes, I do still need to make like a certain amount of clients to like be able to pay for like our house and our bills and like that sort of thing. But it felt like a less daunting of like I would have to like I would be desperate in that sort of thing. So I wanted to make sure that that was the case. And then the second piece that was really important to me was like to make sure that um my business income was like at least close enough that it didn't feel like I was jumping out into the deep end. It was more of like the boat is really close to the dock sort of thing, and I can just make that like jump rather than just like cutting my pay by half,
yeah,
sort of thing. And so I got my income for the business to be very close to like what I was making annually for my 9 to 5, and so that felt less risky to like jump in knowing that. And the wonderful thing about planning is that like we have so much control over like our books and finances of like when somebody books like you can break up their payment into three different payments that works for like a time like if you have no payments coming in May but then June is full like go ahead and put that person to like pay in May so like your cash flow like
yeah,
there's a lot of autonomy on that which is so helpful and then I know like what my books are going to look like for the next 12 months. And then also having an emergency fund, in the business in case like there is a slower season. I mean, no one predicted COVID, right? And so having like a little bit of extra cash to be able to like at least pay my salary for, X amount of months until until, things would pick up or things would get settled out, that sort of thing. And so I think those three things were so important for me, to feel safer. I know there are people that like just jump and do it and it works for them and like that's amazing. I'm not that way. And so I intentionally planned for a couple of years to be able to make the jump full time and not feel stressed about it. But there was definitely a season where, I would get home from my 9 to 5, and granted, I don't have kids, so like it looks very different for me right now. But I would get home from my 9 to 5, and then I would take, quick break for dinner, and then I was on calls from 7 to 9. Like I was like hustling. Like it was a lot, and it was and working on the weekends. So like it was definitely a lot. And I know that that probably would look different for you, like in a season of like having children, and that's a very like real reality for you guys. And I don't want to like discount that at all. And I realize like working 80, 90 hours a week probably doesn't work for your life
No,
situation.
I think that's why, like, I was so excited at the beginning because I like, again, when I didn't have kids, like, it was very much to your point, like, I would be working 9 to 5, get back home, dinner, and then I was on my laptop, but I was happy, like, so I
Yeah.
never felt it. Now it's like, I want a little bit of a balance, and I'm okay with taking a certain cut, but I also very much am like you, where my dad was very much into like, we gotta save, we gotta save, we gotta save. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So I'm very, and that's what just scares me about going, like quitting my 9 to 5 is that like, and Jordan, like I'm an open book, so like I really don't care. But like right now, like I'm only making like, and I know only is not a right next word, but like I'm making like 68,000 at my job. But
Yeah.
being there for 7 years as an events manager, where like I understand like that's maybe on the lower side of event managers in the DC area.
Mhm.
But my butt is that like I
Good.
am fully remote. I only go into the office once a week.
Mhm.
My work is just kind of slow to the point where like I'm really good at my job that I don't have to commit 40 hours a week to it and I can do my business.
Mhm.
But I'm also at a point where it's like my business isn't where I want it to be for me to take any sort of jump in the fact of like I can substitute that finance. Like
Mhm.
where financially it's like my husband is a civil engineer, so obviously he makes more money than I do. And I'm very blessed and we're very lucky that he has that flexibility of like, I don't want to say allowing me to stay in my job, but like allowing me to stay in my job and focus on the benefit. Because there's a benefit, like there's pros and cons of me still being at my current job, right?
For sure.
But and I understand that like if I were ever to go full time, it wouldn't be a matching thing.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm also very heavy into budgeting. So um, I definitely really all that of clearing some of the debt that we have, which we're hopefully going to be doing like within like the next 6 months.
Mhm.
And then
That's
just
amazing. That'll feel so good, like, to be able to just have that behind you. And, yeah, I think the budget is, like, at least from, like, a family perspective, like, it's hard to, like, separate, like, business and
yeah,
family, like, when it's, like, your business because, like, it does play into, like, your family finances and things like that. So I think, like, knowing what your numbers are, like, as a family, like, I need to bring in this number, and it might not for you guys, like, it might not be, exactly like what you're making. It might not be 68 at, for your wedding business. It might be, it might be 50 or it might be like 40, like whatever like number feels comfortable for you guys to sustain like the lifestyle that you want and like what works for your family. And I don't know if like you do childcare, like how that would play into it too. But that like it's all a conversation I would encourage you to have like with your husband of like you guys get on the same page of like this is what our finances look like, and then make a goal, like make a okay, I need to be able to bring in this amount. That means I need to take this many weddings, and I think I can do that in 2 years, 3 years, like whatever that looks like to you guys. Like dream about that and kind of see like what that would look like for you. And I think that I did not answer your question about like, do I tell people that I have a full-time job? I don't think that it's necessary. I don't think that like you should lie. Like if somebody point blank asks you, like absolutely like tell them the truth. But I don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with like not sharing. I think that it's um my full-time job didn't know that I did weddings for a really long time. It was one of those things that it just kind of came out, and I'd worked there for 2 years. It was an absolute shock to my manager, and I wanted it to be that way. Like, I never wanted anyone to like think I wasn't doing what I needed to do for my full-time job because I was doing weddings. Like, I wanted to excel in both. And I didn't want to like steal anything from my employer or anything like that. It just what I do in my personal time is what I do in my personal time. And specifically like with clients, it wasn't really anything that I never like it never came up of like if I did it full time unless like specifically for like venue meetings and things like that of like hey, and honestly it kind of worked for my benefit. Now I feel like I get a little bit more pushback when I'm like I want to do venue meetings like during business hours. Like I don't want to do them on the weekends. I don't want to do them at 8 p.m. at not like that's just not something that I'm doing anymore. And now that people like, most of the clients that I work with do have full-time jobs and like they don't realize that they need to take time off to like plan like meetings like with their vendors. And so I think I get more pushback now, but like when I was working full time, like it was more convenient for me to do evening walkthroughs or weekend walkthroughs or meetings and things like that. So I didn't it never really came up with clients, but obviously like as long as you're honest, I think that that's like the most important thing if somebody point blank asks you, like I don't think it's not authentic to lie about it and be deceiving in that way, but I don't think it's deceiving if you're just, kind of withholding information.
That's kind of how I have been approaching it because I think somehow it came up. I was like, "Oh yeah, my corporate job," and they're like, "Oh, do you have a corporate job?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna lie to you, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
I do."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And if that's the case and they really have a problem with it, they weren't a good fit, anyway.
and
So
that's kind of how I again goes back to me having that 9 to 5 and that steady income is like if it's not a good fit, then it's not a good fit. It's okay.
exactly. Exactly.
But no, I think that like the leaving the 9 to 5, especially like as I hold this little one, Ellie's gonna turn 3. Elizabeth's turning 3 this year.
Okay.
And I would love to make it a goal of like, well, maybe once she's in school, I can again, childcare is expensive.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe just taking advantage of the childcare that we currently have and growing the business to when she is in school and we might not need childcare, that expense and line item on our household budget disappears and I might not need to make as much.
Right, exactly. Because like you could, even if, you have childcare for 4 hours twice a week, like, that might be something that, you kind of cover the other times and you do the nap time hustle. Like, I've seen it. I've seen moms do it, for years now, and it's so impressive to me, like to see, like, I mean, that's hard work. So, and then managing the little ones, like, it's a lot. So I'm not trying to discount that in any way. It is very admirable, and yeah, but I think that you can definitely like be strategic and kind of thinking through like, okay, there's my goals, like how can I get there, and doing it on a way that's realistic for you.
And I think right now, like leaving this conversation, that's kind of where my head is spinning at. Like, okay, within 2 years, once Ellie's in school, like I want to make it the leaving corporate like a more of a reality. And like this year, let's focus on getting my workflows and everything ready to go. Next year, let's start really kicking into high gear and implementing and then see how it goes after.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great way to do it.
And being productive. Yay.
Yay! Oh my goodness, that smile. Oh, well, I hope that this has been helpful for you and kind
Yes,
of
it has been
processing some of
so
these
much.
things and seeing and hearing. And what I am going to do is I'm going to send you a link to the recording so that you can kind of go back and be like, okay, like what do we talk about? Like, that sort of thing. I also will send you a kind of just like some action plans of recommendations of things that like we've talked about of like practical steps that I think that you could take and to kind of move forward and progress us on those goals that we talked about. And then have you used Voxer before?
No.
Okay. So Voxer is like it's kind of like a walkie-talkie kind of app, but it's like a voice memo thing. And so with coaching sessions, what I like to do is offer like 2 weeks of Voxer access. So like you can Vox me of like, hey, like I'm starting to work on this. Like, what do you think about this? And like we can kind of verbally process back and forth, like as you're starting to implement some of the things that you have. So I'll send a link to like Voxer and kind of like what my information is there maybe like later this afternoon, and so that you guys can think through all of that and what that looks like. But yeah, if you have any questions, this was so fun. I loved like kind of your vision and your story. And like I said, I think it's absolutely doable. Like you were where I was, 3 or 4 years ago, and it is so cool to be able to kind of help people figure out what works for them and kind of what that next step looks like. So
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. Again, this was really, really helpful. Thank
it was
you.
nice to meet you, Kayla. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, friend. Oh,
Bye.
sweet. See ya.